2 Overdrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Bryan Hayes, Gord Miller, big hour. Jose Bautista coming up at 5:30.
Yeah, looking forward to that.
Level of excellence, Jose Bautista. He had to have known, right?
And no doubter, right?
Yeah, no doubter. Like, between him and Delgado, they own every single stat.
His path, he was a Pittsburgh.
When they acquired him from Pittsburgh, it was one of the more under-the-radar acquisitions in Toronto sports history.
Yeah.
It was for, I believe, a future assets. They brought him in, and it was like, all right, who's this guy, and what is he going to bring to the table? And then in 2010, he hit 54 home runs. That is an explosion of offense. Man. That is immediately letting the world know you're the real deal, and maybe Pittsburgh and their scouting department should have some reflection.
You know what, though? That happens so much. That happens so much, not just in baseball, but in sports. You know, suddenly a guy gets in the right situation, gets some confidence. Someone's got to believe in you.
Well, I would guess someone within that organization probably did believe in him, and they were the ones sticking their chest out saying, I told you. I told you. But you wouldn't give him a shot.
But before you do that, you got to put your hand on the table and vouch for the guy.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work out.
That's the thing.
Right? So you get the right to stick your chest out when it works out.
When it works out.
Because you got to put your, in those meetings, and I've sat in some of these meetings, before drafts and things, and it's interesting to hear them talk about players. Because it's hard. If you're wrong, right? Especially if you're picking first, second, third overall, if you're wrong.
Oh, it's a franchise-altering mistake.
Catastrophic.
Yeah.
Catastrophic.
I wonder if it's easier to be optimistic about a player or pessimistic about a player.
It's more naturally pessimistic.
Yeah, and it probably hits more. More guys fall through the cracks than actually make it.
If you spent, so I was just in Slovakia at the Hlinka Gretzky Cup. So there was 225 NHL people there. And scouts are inherently negative people. They will say, well, this guy can't do, he doesn't do this, he doesn't do that, doesn't do this. That's kind of what. So what happens is you're kind of heralded, in your underage year, and then in your draft year they pick you apart. Well, he doesn't do this, doesn't do that. I don't know about this. I don't know about that. I remember guys talking about McDavid.
That seems impossible.
A few, but there was a big discussion within the Tampa group about Stamkos versus Doughty,
which is reasonable in retrospect because they're both great Hall of Fame players.
Right. So I think that it's natural to sit there and say what a guy can't do. It's harder to say, here's what he can do.
Yeah.
And I think that gets lost in the
I think that's
because it's really important to say, I remember when Jason Spezza played in Ottawa, and Jody Hull got hurt in the playoffs. Spezza had just come up, and he played a couple playoff games. I think he had 3 points in 2 games, but Jody Hull was ready to come back, and Jacques Martin pulled him out and put Jody Hull in. And I remember thinking, why would he do that? And Martin's line was, well, nothing bad happens when Jody Hull is on the ice. I'm like, yeah, nothing happens.
Yeah, exactly.
But coaches tend to defer to safe players.
Right.
They don't
predictable players.
If I hear 200-foot player one more time, seriously, give me some 60-footers.
Yeah.
I'll take a good 60-footer, puts the puck in the net. If you got a good core and everything else, but it's a natural thing. And, listening to people talk about players, he doesn't do this, doesn't. Yeah, had 40 goals.
Yeah. Well, exactly.
People in Toronto about Nylander.
Yeah, Willie gets picked apart. Yeah, he gets picked apart. He's 40 goals, 80 points. He's a really good player.
Hard to score in the NHL.
It's very difficult to do that.
I don't know if you've heard this, but it's very hard to score in the NHL.
Yeah, it's very difficult to do that. Yeah.
Hardest thing to do.
Yep. Now, that doesn't mean, there's no perfect player.
Of course not.
Even Connor McDavid, you could look at certain things and say, well, I'd rather he defended this way, maybe he shortened some shifts up or whatever.
A couple of years ago,
nitpicking.
A couple of years ago, there was talk about his defensive play.
Yeah. Which I think is improved, but it's not. I wouldn't suggest it's elite. But is that reasonable to expect?
Crosby's face-offs, early in his career, not great on face-offs. Things
right.
Like that. And of course, Sid, chained himself in a basement for the summer and had a face-off machine and came out as a 60% guy every year after that.
Right. But exactly, yeah. And I think that speaks to it. If the top dog is being picked apart in some ways, then naturally guys further down the lineup are going to get it, right? Yeah. But no, you're right about scouting. And I find that is generally the case, the longer a player is in junior in particular. Like, Spezza's an example. Spezza showed up at 15. He was playing in Brampton, and then he went to Mississauga first overall. And he ends up getting to his draft, and Kovalchuk goes first overall, which is, again, not unreasonable in retrospect.
No.
Like, Kovalchuk, great player, and you can make the case as good, if not better, than Spezza. But when Spezza was 15, it was like a foregone conclusion he was going first overall.
But, Brian, they draft 18-year-olds in the NHL.
Mm-hmm.
If the NFL drafted 18-year-olds, Tom Brady wouldn't have been picked.
No, exactly.
He was a sixth-round pick as a 21-year-old.
Right, who had started and played as a senior, I believe, in Michigan.
At Michigan. So I mean, drafting 18-year-olds is excruciating.
Very difficult to do. And, again, the majority of them miss. So if you sit there and you just
first-round picks,
not necessarily first-round picks, but over the course of a 7-round draft.
But first-round picks is where you make that's where you build.
Yeah, that's where you're expected to hit.
That's where you build your team.
Yeah,
championship teams are built two ways. One is with high first-round picks, and then you get guys after the first round that fill out your roster. That, Patrice Bergeron, second-round pick to Boston. But you got to have those stars you get in the first round.
Yes. Yeah, I don't know what the percentages of hits and misses in the first round. I would think it's. I don't know, over 70%, something like, although it's top 10 is different than in the 20s, right?
You got to define
it. Get to 27, 28, it's
what's
not.
a hit? Like if you draft a guy who plays 1,000 games.
Yeah, that's clearly a hit.
Yeah.
But you're right. Some guy who makes it but only plays 150 and is a fourth liner.
But what if he plays 1,000 games, he's just a defensive defenseman?
I think that's still a good pick. Could there have been a better pick if you go back and review it? Sure, but I think any team outside of the first overall pick or maybe a top 5 pick, if you were granted a player that's going to play 1,000 games, that's a great pick.
Yeah.
It's a great pick.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you get the first overall pick in a draft where there's a Bedard or a McDavid or whatever, then you don't even have to think about it.
Some years you don't. Some years the first overall pick isn't.
No, it's a Slavkovsky or it's,
give that time, but.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that was not a lock that he was going to be the first overall pick, and it's undetermined what he's going to be at the NHL level. I'm not saying he won't turn into a very good player.
Because there's a second part of the equation.
Should.
There's a second part of the equation. I would say to you that Montreal is an average drafting team and a below average to actually poor developing team.
Really?
Because
this is in recent history.
Last 15 years. What you do when you draft a player is only part of it. Then you got to develop them. You got to develop them properly. And I think Toronto's done a real good job developing prospects.
Mm-hmm.
They've let them come over later from Europe. They've let them play in the American League for a while. They've done a good job of that. Montreal just throws them into the meat grinder and away they go.
Yeah. Well, Slavkovsky again this year.
Yeah.
Like the first overall pick complicates things. There's an economic value to it.
Had 5 goals the year before in Finland.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like it was a project even at first overall. Yeah. Like understood.
But Owen Power went back to Michigan.
That was on his own accord.
I know, but
Buffalo would have had him in the lineup.
I know, but he went back to Michigan and made a world of difference for him.
Yeah. Although he was first overall pick, so I'm not disputing it probably helped him, but at first overall pick,
but you can't win then. You
were expected to be a grand slam.
Right, but you can't win then because if the guy does go back and he pans out, you say, well, he could have anyway. If the guy doesn't go back and plays too soon, then you say, well, he's a lousy pick.
Mm. No, it's not going to hurt him.
Development's a big part of it.
Yeah, it absolutely is. All right.
I always felt you were developed very well as a player. I thought Barry did a poor job.
I thought so too. And now that I look back on that, they really did screw me over.
Yeah.
I had a real chance.
Yeah.
There's scouting reports out there on my game, and I'd love to read them.
I can find them.
Oh, I'm sure they're out there somewhere. Although this was prior to like computers, and like computers were around, but I don't think iPads were. Like I was still a part of the old school.
I think you're in the Central Scouting Database.
I probably would be because I was in the league for a draft year. Like I was in there 2000,
I want to
2001.
find your scouting report.
Yeah, like I was in when Spezza went second overall. I was playing against him. That's probably why I went second overall. Dump it in my corner and figure it out. Pretty good game plan. All right, Steve Sands in about an hour. The FedEx Cup playoffs beginning. Sands is a beauty. One of the greats. Keegan Matheson coming up as well from Cleveland. Game 2 of the Guardians, or Game 3 of the series tonight with Kevin Gausman on the mound. He will join us at 6:30. But role play level of concern, very exciting stuff, Gord.
Okay, I'm rusty, so remind me.
Okay, let's play the intro, and then I'll come back and I'll explain what we're about to get into.
You can never ask me to stop drinking. Do you understand?
I do. I really do.
All right, so I want to give a shout out to a kid that I met last week when I was off. We were at a water park, and we were going up and down these slides, and we were waiting in line, myself and my oldest daughter, and a kid behind me kind of tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Can I ask you a question?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Are you Hayes?" I said, "Yes, I am." He goes, "Oh, yeah, I know you. My dad, makes us listen to you in the truck," which I take that as a compliment, even though it sounded as if he was basically forced into that. Yeah. And I said, "Oh, thanks, pal. I appreciate that." I don't think I was trying to push the conversation forward, but he went on and said, "My favorite part is the boozing segment, the drinking segment."
And how old was he?
Well, he was about 13, and I confused me because I'm like, I know we probably sound drunk a lot on the show.
Next generation.
Yeah, and I was like, which drinking segment are you talking about? And then it dawned on me, role play level of concern. I'm like, oh, you're a big fan of Nick Cage. He said, absolutely. So you're right. The next wave of degenerates in the greater Toronto area, we're raising them properly here on this show. So role play level of concern sounds complicated. It's not, Gord. You're going to play the role of a person or a team or a fan base, and I am going to supply you with a situation. And playing that role and considering that situation, you have to give out your level of concern.
I remember this. This is like Nick Cage.
Nick Cage's nuclear levels.
Leaving Las Vegas, like in the room, in the hotel room.
You got a lot of concern. If you're Nick Cage, a lot of concern. Now, there's Marty Wildwood, who you can play, JP.
6 Busch Light, 6 Bud Light, and I love them, tall boys.
So that's like a step below Nick Cage. There's a lot of concern there, but it's not, again, nuclear levels. And then you can have maybe a 6-pack and a shot, which is a little bit of concern. And then a pint on the patio is you have absolutely no concern. Yeah. All right? So you get a lot of freedom here. You can go basically whichever way you choose. All right, Gord, you're playing the role. This is actually a perfect role for you because I don't think this is a role you want to play. Baltimore Orioles owner John Angelos. You're playing the role of John Angelos.
So I hate myself.
Yes, exactly.
I hate myself.
What is your level of concern that with this Kevin Brown stunt, who is the voice of the Orioles, you've suspended him for reading statistics off a television screen? What is your level of concern that you have ruined any goodwill you've built up this year based on how you fumbled the Kevin Brown situation?
I'm Nick Cage locked in the hotel room. How did I get here?
You can never ask me to stop drinking.
Wow, you're Nick Cage.
I'm Nick Cage because how did I get here? Mm-hmm. The TV play-by-play guy is suddenly a national issue. like how did we get to this point where the TV play-by-play guy is the biggest issue in baseball, and every single broadcast in baseball is pointing this out?
Yeah. Like your fans are chanting Kevin Brown.
Free Kevin Brown. Like, how did I get to this point?
What did you do?
Where did I go wrong as a human being? Because what I am is I'm a sports owner.
Yeah.
Ryan. And you know what that means? For the most part, I'm not a good person.
No.
Because we as a group, the people who own sports teams, we're thin-skinned.
Yeah, you're very sensitive.
Very thin-skinned. We're very arrogant. We're very power-hungry.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know what probably happened is I was sitting at home drinking my martini, my feet up, and I turned on the ball game and I saw that, and it enraged me. And
you got a short fuse, John.
I picked up my cell phone as I'm wont to do.
Yeah.
And I said, fire that guy.
That guy's out. Suspend him.
He's out. Get him off the air. And they said, yes, sir.
Yeah.
Which is another thing that's
no filter there, right?
Yeah, problem.
Okay, play the role of Gord Miller again. And how do you respond? Like, what do you make of this story?
Well,
as a play-by-play guy,
I think a couple of things. First of all, he signs on the air wearing a golf shirt with an Orioles logo on. Mm-hmm. Like he didn't wear an I Hate Baltimore T-shirt. He's an Orioles broadcaster. He read a graphic, as you pointed out. So it was prepared by the graphics producer, typed into the machine by the graphics operator. The producer called for it. The director put it up. Like a lot of things went into this whole thing.
Right.
So the narrative has been, he didn't say anything wrong. He just read a graphic. So my comment is, what if he did say something? What if he said, you know what? The Trop is a graveyard for the Orioles. They've been awful here for 10 years. So what?
Right.
So I come up from 2 points of view. One, I've done regional games for a long time. Montreal, Ottawa, Toronto. If the Leafs are 0 for 19 in the power play, I'm going to say they're 0 for 19. They're struggling on the power play. They're 0 for 19. Now, some fans might not like that. And I think there's a segment of the fan base that wants a pom-pom waiver to to cheer for the team,
Yeah.
I'm cognizant when I do a Leaf game that I'm talking to a primarily Leaf audience. So if the opposition scores an overtime goal, I'm not going through the roof about it. I'm not going to do what some guys do, which is like, yeah, they score. But I can tell you firsthand, a lot of local broadcasters are under immense pressure from the team to not say anything negative.
Right.
I mean, a guy ended a long goalless drought, like historically long, and when they mentioned the number of games on a certain team's broadcast, they were on the next day saying like, no, that's a negative stat. Never.
Wow.
So the pressure is on those guys all the time. And I can tell you as a national broadcaster, like, I work for NBC and ESPN. You go to some of these markets where the guys are like banging the drum for the home team, and suddenly you say, yeah, their goaltender's got the 5th worst save percentage in the league, and they've been hearing all year that every goal that went in was a rocket of an unstoppable shot or a bad bounce.
You're a hater.
You're a hater.
Yeah.
So I get it, but it's the expectation from the team is that you are now you're Pravda.
Yeah.
Right. Nothing's wrong. Everything's
Exactly.
good, and so I find that amazing. And a lot of guys now work for the team. I've never worked for a team.
Mm-hmm.
I work for TSN. And so I've never had, the only thing I ever heard was, there was a guy used to be in Ottawa, like an executive in Ottawa. He used to go crazy about the 3 stars.
Because he wanted exclusively Ottawa Senators.
So you pick the 3
they
stars.
get smoked 8-0.
You pick the 3 stars with 5 minutes to go. They got to build the graphic, put the stats in. So one night, Chicago's beating Ottawa 3-2. Taves had 2 goals. We picked Jonathan Taves as the first star. Okay, so Ottawa scores with 30 seconds to go to tie it, wins it in overtime. Well, we still got Taves as the first star.
Right. That's how TV works.
Who cares?
Yeah.
Like literally.
Then you won the game.
Who cares? And we got an email, like this scorching email the next day. How dare you name Taves the first star? Who cares?
Well,
but I mean, some of the stuff is like I can tell you what some of these teams go through, what some of these broadcasters go through. They just shovel the manure.
Yeah.
They just shovel it and they get a nice paycheck because
and they understand it. To be fair, they get it. They know their team employees. That's the amazing thing here is Kevin Brown. Like, he's not anti-Orioles, and the Orioles are a great story this
He didn't
year.
say anything wrong. So again, how can you possibly take a feel-good story like Baltimore and make it a feel-bad story?
Do something stupid like this. And now I wonder if Angelos is going to be vindictive of the whole situation and say, watch this, man. I'm really going to hammer away.
Now, if you put him back on, you're backing off. And
now
you're
soft.
One thing owners don't like is having to admit they were wrong.
Right.
They can be a tiny bit narcissistic. Not all of them. There's lots of good owners.
Sure.
But there's lots of terrible ones. There's some really bad.
But they own it, and they can do whatever they want for the most part.
And they wouldn't run any other business the same way.
Well, what I'm surprised by here is that Rob Manfred has not been on the phone with Angelo saying, what are you doing?
But just think,
smarten up.
Rob Manfred's inbox is all this stuff going on. The TV play-by-play guy in Baltimore is an issue now.
Exactly.
Are you serious?
Like the Yankees and Mets are in turmoil right now. We're not going to have New York representation or Boston representation or Chicago representation. The Angels are a mess with Shohei. Like, that's got to be something that Manfred's thinking of.
So we have to do it.
And yet,
so don't step on a rake.
Baltimore.
Don't step on a rake.
Yeah. All right, good stuff. All right, I'm playing the role of Canadian tennis.
Oh, good for you.
Yes. What is my level of concern that I do not have a true Grand Slam contender right now? I'm going to go with Marty Wildwood on this.
6 Busch Light, 6 Bud Light, and I love them, tall boys.
Now, I think, on the women's side, there's a lot of fluidity in the women's side.
Yeah.
In terms of who's chasing the number 1 seed in the world, who's coming, who's going. On the men's side, it's been, for the better part of 15-plus years, it was Federer, Nadal, Djokovic. We knew that. And then maybe Andy Murray would, kick around. Djokovic is still the man. Alcaraz has clearly thrown his hat into the ring in terms of trying to hold on to that title. But I think it's somewhat open on both sides for the ability for one of these players to still catch some lightning in the bottle. Felix has been injured all year, but last night was really tough. Yeah. You got Felix in Toronto. Yeah, Chapo's not even playing in this tournament. Felix loses in straight sets. Then you go to Montreal. Bianca loses in straight sets. Like Bianca Andreescu, I have a really difficult time watching her play. Like whenever she's just complaining the whole time. And yet she is our slam winner. Like she is the queen of Canadian tennis.
I will say this: lots of men do that.
No, it's not a gender thing. There's a lot of. I'm talking about Canadians.
Yeah.
Shapovalov is really poor at that. Like Shapo, you talk about getting emails and people not being happy. When we played that Shapo hitting the Judge in the face clip so many times. I'm not sure that the Shapovalovs were necessarily loving that.
No.
I'm just saying, when it comes to Canadian tennis and Bianca, she shows her frustration a lot right now, and she was showing it last night. But Bianca's not there. Layla's still kicking around, but it seems like ever since that U.S. Open run a couple of years ago, like her game has fallen off a little bit. Shapo's banged up. Felix has been banged up. The coolest story in Canadian tennis right now is Raonic. He won again today.
Amazing, yeah.
Like Milos is still rolling, man.
Good for him.
Yeah, it is a really good story. But in terms of having a Canadian tennis player on the men's side or women's side that truly feels like they're contending for a slam, it feels far-fetched, but I'm not quite there because I've seen it out of Bianca. We've seen Layla in a U.S. Open final. I believe Shapo and a healthy Felix Auger-Aliassime are capable of going on runs at slams. And I think the men's side and the women's side relatively open today compared to maybe where it was at, times 5 years ago when Serena was dominating on the women's side and Federer and Nadal and Djokovic were in their primes. All right, Gord, you're playing the role of the Pittsburgh Penguins in 2025.
Summer of 2025?
Summer of 25. That is 2 full seasons from now. What is your level of concern? You'll be the worst team in the league at that point and in a bad spot for a long time.
What's the lowest level of concern?
Pint on the patio.
So here's
You're a pint on the patio.
Here's your mental picture.
Okay.
I'm the pint on the patio. I'm picking at a bowl of chips. There are 4,000 empty whiskey bottles in my basement.
Yes.
And I'm wearing at least one more Stanley Cup ring.
Oh.
So I'm like, you know what? I don't care about the next 10 years.
You think there's a legit cup window in the next 2 years in Pitt?
Well, I think that's what they think.
Yeah,
you're asking me to be the Pittsburgh Penguins.
That's right.
I'm saying I don't care about tomorrow. I'll gladly pay, tomorrow for a hamburger today.
Yes.
And so I am sitting there. I'm fat. I am sunburnt. I probably need some help with my issues because I've been drinking for like who knows how long.
Right.
I've been celebrating like you can't believe.
Well,
Sid's 38 now.
Yeah.
Sid's 38. We put another ring on his finger.
Think he retires a Penguin? Is that the plan for you? It's got to be, right? If you're the Pittsburgh Penguins at 25, has to be.
I think they're all in here, right? They are all in.
They are.
So they spin the wheel, and if it hits, great. And if not, you kind of owe it to those guys anyway. Like they're
going to be a fun team. They're going to be a fun team.
They're going to be fun to watch, and I think they're. It's funny because Kyle Dubas has his reputation for swinging for the fences, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now to extend the baseball analogy, when you do that, you do strike out a lot.
Yes. Oh, he's had some misses.
Yeah. So
he's had some misses.
But playing it safe there and trying to manage it, go for it.
That's what I have an appreciation for with Dubas.
Yeah, you go for it. Like honestly,
he is constantly
going. Got, it's like Edmonton, man. You know what? Worry about those first round picks down the road. You got Connor and Leon. Mm-hmm. You got to make this thing go now.
Yeah. Like I agree with you. I mean, Pitt is in a different situation because they've had past success.
And by the way, that won't be my problem.
Well, it might be with Dubas because he is the judge, jury, and executioner.
The problem is I'm the Penguin.
You're the Penguins.
I'm the Penguin, so it is theoretically my problem.
Isn't there a little bit of concern that when Lemieux left, it was like near catastrophe? Like near, if we don't win this lottery and get a new rink, we may not be in Pittsburgh anymore.
But they have the rink now.
Right. And ownership. They got Fenway behind them. But I guess what I'm saying is, at some point it's going to cycle in a poor direction for Pitt.
Of course.
They've had a remarkable run.
It's inevitable.
It's inevitable.
Yeah. So what? So you might as well go for it while you
still are holding on.
It's going to go bad anyway.
Yeah.
This isn't going to make it worse.
No, you're right. Hey, listen, Sid played 82 games last year.
And played really well.
They're phenomenal.
Had a great year.
Gino had a very good year. Gino played 82 games.
Yeah.
And now you got a guy who had 101 points come in Eric Carlson. They're going to be a really fun team. Really fun. I like some of the moves they made, too. Like the Riley Smith trade was a sneaky little move.
Yeah.
I like Achari.
How did I do?
I think you were pretty good.
Okay.
Listen, we got more we'll get to next hour if we have time. Right?
I didn't like being Peter Angelos, though. I feel dirty.
Yeah, I wouldn't think you would.
I think I need a shower.
Yeah. But I might have you playing the role of the Canadian Cup drought at some point if you think that could come to an end.
I'm so sick of that.
How can you be? It's 30 years. You know how loud it's
not my fault.
It's an arbitrary number, but 30 is bold. Like 30 is bold.
We got to go.
30 is bold.
You know what?
Gord.
You think Toronto fans want to see Edmonton win?
No.
Of course not.
No, not individually. You're right. But that's against the point. Like, we're talking a big picture thing. Why there hasn't been an individual Canadian team winning the Stanley Cup.
I'm not doing it.
All right. Jose Bautista, level of excellence, happening this weekend down at the Dome. It's going to be a great weekend. Jose will join us next. It's going to be a big weekend down at the Rogers Center. Jays back in action tonight in Cleveland. Jays are in a good spot. You know, they're in a pretty good spot. They're in a wild card place right now. They're chasing, I guess, Houston, Tampa, chasing Baltimore. But as of now, it looks like they're going to be a playoff team.
But that sweep against Boston was so big.
Massive.
I mean,
massive. They needed that, especially with the way they've been playing in the AL East. Their numbers were staggering. But this weekend, it's obviously about what's going to be happening on the field. You're getting sellouts basically every home game, all the renovations down at the Dome. It's been awesome. But what's really going to stick out is the level of excellence, right? We're going to have an addition to the level of excellence. It is a very unique group. Difficult to get up there, but we got a guy on the line here that I think most people in Toronto were well aware this was coming. By, I'd say 2014, certainly after 15 and 16, it was a lock. He's going into the Blue Jays level of excellence. He's back on OverDrive, first time in a long time. Here's Jose Bautista. How you doing, Jose?
I'm doing great, gentlemen. Thanks for having me again.
Yes, thank you for doing this. This will be a different scene for you this weekend. What are you anticipating in terms of nerves, in terms of seeing, old friends getting out there on the field, the amount of fans they're going to be there this weekend? How cool do you think it's going to be on Saturday?
Oh, I think it's going to be amazing. I can't wait. I'm excited. Can't wait to see everybody back at Rogers Center, just bringing the old gang together, and most importantly, seeing a packed stadium, rooting on for the Jays, but also there to, celebrate the ceremonies right before the game.
How would you describe your relationship with Blue Jay fans throughout your career here?
Nothing short of amazing. I mean, ever since I first stepped foot in Canada and at the stadium, they treated me with respect and, always rooted me on. And then obviously with the success, that just kind of got augmented. But I've had nothing but great experiences in my time in Canada. And I've always felt welcome and loved, and I certainly appreciate that.
Jose, when you think back to your arrival in Toronto, I mean, the franchise was not in great shape. It's been a long time since they'd had any success, but you and Edwin Encarnacion really helped kickstart what we see now is the kind of the continuation of the Blue Jays being an annual contender. How proud of that are you?
Yeah, there was a few other guys in there too. Donaldson, Tulowitzki, and David Price, and others, Marcus Stroman. There's more names to that list, but definitely proud. I mean, anytime you can kind of get an organization just over that hump of just treading water per se, and get back on the winning side, on a competitive side consistently, you got to be happy with your performance if you feel like you contributed a little bit. I like to think I put in my little grains of sand in there, but the most important thing is we created great memories for the fans during my time there, and that's obviously going to continue to happen. But we had great teams, we enjoyed our time there, and we had some fun playoff runs.
We're chatting with Jose Bautista. He'll be in Toronto this weekend. Jays Cubs down at the Dome, and he's going up into the level of excellence. And, that 2010 season is one of the most magical seasons in Blue Jay history. You hit 54 home runs. It was your coming out party. Can you take us back to 2010? And do you remember any slumps? Like when you hit 54, at any point during that season, did you feel like you weren't seeing the ball properly?
Well, I was certainly trying to hit the ball hard and out of the park, but I hit 250, so I wasn't getting base hits every single day.
Right.
And I normally struck out a fair amount, too. So it did feel like I was connecting more often than not, obviously. It felt like it was in a dream or a daze. And looking back, I still can't believe that I was able to accomplish that. But, I kept getting decent pitches to hit, and I wasn't missing as often as I used to. Obviously, that's a tough number to get back to. Pitching changes. Everything changes after you you hit a number like that. And, unfortunately, I was never able to get back up to that number, but it was a magical season indeed.
But Jose, baseball's kind of caught up with your approach now. Like when you watch baseball games now, they don't care if a guy strikes out 200 times a year, right? I mean, it's like, that approach of, hit it hard and it's acceptable to strike out is kind of caught up, hasn't it?
Well, I wouldn't say that was necessarily my approach. I certainly wasn't trying to strike out.
No.
I just wasn't as good as other guys was going the other way. So the way I look at it, I was trying to stick to my strength as much as I could, right? If the game situation warranted it, I was trying to obviously make contact, go the other way, especially in tight games, late in games against really tough pitchers. When it was really needed, I was definitely trying to change my approach. But in every other instance, I was trying to do what I did best, which was hit the ball in the seats, especially during batting practice and stuff, and just replicate that. And after making some adjustments, it wasn't as difficult as it was in the past. Don't get me wrong, hitting home runs is never easy. But I was able to find some consistency and a good rhythm at the plate.
With Jose Bautista, guys are bat flipping blue singles now in baseball, or it feels like it. And probably when you came into the game, that wasn't the case. But I would suggest when you left it obviously was. And I think you got the most famous bat flip in baseball history in 15 Game 5. Do you feel the same? Do you feel like you were a trailblazer for bat flipping?
Well, I certainly wasn't the first guy to bat flip. But, I grew up watching Dominican Winter League baseball. And I haven't talked about this very much. But guys were doing some funny and crazy stuff down there. And bat flipping was one of them. And it was just a different flavor of the game. You could see how the fans were like way more into it. It seemed like even if it was a game time single in the third inning, right? I grew up watching that. I never planned to do a bat flip. It just the moment I got caught in the emotion, but it was a good celebration for that, that hit. I did take a little bit of heat for it, but now all the other guys get to enjoy it, and so do the fans. Now it's another connection piece between the fans and the players, and I thoroughly enjoy when I see guys, in the right situations, give it a good bat flip.
How often have you gone back, if at all, to watch that seventh inning, Game 5 versus Texas?
Yeah, I run across from it in TV, or somebody sends me a video, or on social media every now and then. I can't tell you that I sit here and just kind of actively look for it, but I somehow get connected to it every now and then, and it's fun. It's fun going back and watching.
It was 8 years ago, Jose. But it still lives. In fact, you could argue that it's as prominent now as when it happened. Does that surprise you?
It is. It is a little bit surprising, but at the same time, it was a little bit polarizing, like I mentioned earlier. But it was a big moment, right? We hadn't been to the playoffs at that time in 22 years. That series was crazy. We lost 2 at home, went to Texas, won 2. That game had back and forth, and it was awkward stuff going on, like Russell throwing the ball and it hit the bat, and the rule, nobody remembered the rule, and they ended up getting a run. And it was just, then they made 3 errors in a row. It was like kind of sort of meant to be, and it was just a great moment. And I think the Blue Jays fans are one of those fan bases that they make their name heard and seen across all of MLB. So I think because it happened with us in Toronto, it had a little bit bigger impact.
With Jose Bautista, you guys made it to the championship series in 15 and in 16, both great teams. As you look back on it now, you've had a chance to reflect. Of those two options, was there one that you felt gave you the better chance of winning the World Series, like one that burns you a little bit more, you look back on it? If so, which one would it be, the 15 team or the 16?
I think 15, because we caught, such a hot streak right after the deadline with some of the acquisitions and stuff. That's the one we kind of felt like we were just riding that wave and had great momentum. That's the one. Obviously, they both hurt equally at the end of the day, but That's the one where we were like, we can't believe we didn't get it done,
So, Jose, when you watch the Jays now, what do you see and what do you think?
I love it. I think these guys got way more talent than we did. Obviously, the league is tougher, especially with some of the some of the teams at the top. But, it's exciting. It's an exciting team. There's a good combination of power and speed. I love, the current makeup of the club. I just, they haven't been, I guess, as consistent on the mound as they can be because those guys are able and capable. They've been kind of hurt with the injury bug a little bit, but I truly believe that they have all that it takes and more to make a deep run in the playoffs and be World Series contenders. That's truly what I believe. With the guys that are involved, like Vladdy, Bo, Batman, Barrios, Gossman, Springer, I'm writing off all-star names. Those guys are great players, and I think they can get it done. So when I'm tuning in, almost nightly, I always got my fingers crossed and hoping that all the breaks go their way because sometimes you need that in baseball. But I'm excited to watch these games down the stretch in August and September because obviously they're in a, they're not leading point right now, but they're in a good position to still be able to make it happen.
We're chatting with Jose Bautista. You mentioned Vladdy, and I'm curious, like you mentioned growing up in the Dominican and watching winter ball down there. How much did you look up to Vladdy Sr.? What kind of connection do you have to Vladdy Jr.?
Well, he was one of my favorite players, other than Ken Griffey and Manny Ramirez. One of my favorite players. Yes, he could do it all, right? And it's a coincidence that he was in Montreal for the bulk of, at least his career in my youth. It was one of those guys that you couldn't help but try to emulate because you can, what can't this guy do?
Right.
He had a cannon. He could hit homers. He can hit for average. He can steal bases, especially early on. The turf monster might have caught up to him eventually when he went to Anaheim, but, when he first started, he could do it all. I have somewhat of a connection to Vladdy Jr., not a huge one, but we are in contact, and I try to mentor him as much as I can without being too invasive. And just, I'm going to make myself available if he ever needs me. So I know Vladdy Sr. came to spring training with us once. It didn't work out for him. But then Vladdy came up a couple of times right after he signed to Toronto and took BP with us. And we had him up for spring training from minor league camp a few times. So, we know each other. We treat each other with respect, and we kind of keep each other in touch.
There's been big rule changes in baseball this year, Jose, and I'm curious how you would have felt about them, specifically the pitch clock and the pacing of the game. Do you think you would have benefited from those rule changes, or might that have affected you negatively somehow?
Yeah, it's hard to kind of know and kind of guess, but I love every single one of them. I like the fact that the game is played with a faster pace now. It creates more contact. I think guys that have more tools that can run and do some stuff with hitting and running and bunting, and it just creates more action and more high-speed plays. So I enjoy that as a baseball fan on top of being a former baseball player. I think the pitch clock is just, keep the action moving, right? Sometimes it got a little stale. I think even some pitchers would agree with that. And ultimately, we're in the entertainment business, and we are a product, and people have to tune in and watch. And, the machine's got to be working in order for everything to be sustained. So I think these moves not only help on the business side, but actually also on the game style and quality of the game. I think it makes the game be more athletic, and it brings more elements into the game than not so one-dimensional with, swing and miss and home runs.
So do you have a speech plan here, Jose, or are you just going to wing it this weekend?
No chance I wing it, my man. Not with the emotions, not with the packed house, and not with, the delay in the microphone. So I was properly advised, and we ended up recording a message. I will be on the mic, hopefully briefly, because it's not my arena. So as much as I'm comfortable, competing against somebody throwing 100 miles an hour in front of 50,000 holding the mic is a different story. So, I'll be out there, and I hope everybody enjoys my message.
Jose, don't do a mic drop. Do a mic flip.
Yes, a mic flip.
Do it.
That'd be outstanding.
All right. I'll think about it.
Yes, you got to do that. The mic flip would be absolutely outstanding. Well, enjoy your time up here, Jose. It's going to be an incredible reception. People can't wait to see you back in town. And it's going to be a fun weekend. The Jays are playing well, and we look forward to seeing you up here. So congrats on the level of excellence, and thank you for doing this today.
No problem. Thank you very much for having me, and you guys know where to find me if you need me again.
You got it. There he is, Jose Bautista, one of the great Blue Jays of all time. That is a great idea, the mic flip.
Do it.
If he flips the mic, that place will go bananas. You're going to get credit for that now, Gord. I'm sure Shulman will mention that. I'm sure he'll mention your name. I'd be shocked if he didn't. Shocked if he didn't on their telecast. If he flips that mic, Gord Miller, you got to get credit. Full credit for that. That's a great idea. The bat flip. What a scene that was, man.
It's funny because
what a scene.
It's just one of those. I mean, you think about the most important moments in Jays history. I mean, Joe Carter.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not up with that. It was
It's in the top.
It is, but
top 5 probably.
It is, but it's so iconic because of the image. Right?
Yes.
So
and because of the buildup of the 7th inning.
You would argue, Bobby Orr's flying through the air goal is iconic because of the picture.
Sure.
And it clinched the cup. That was
Sweep.
It was a sweep.
Yeah. St. Louis, they stink.
But easy. But I mean, you know what I mean? Like sometimes the image is so overpowering,
Right.
that it becomes iconic.
Well, and I think the player has to be the right player too. You mentioned this Bobby Orr. If that's the 6th defenseman flying through the air,
yeah, it doesn't. Yeah. That's Don Orey. It's not the same.
Exactly. Like it's Bobby Orr doing it. It's Jose Bautista hitting that home run.
Like the Eberle goal at the World Junior in 2009. Mm-hmm. That was a semifinal game.
Right. I don't think a lot of people would remember that.
2 years earlier, or a year earlier, Matt Halischuk scored a golden goal for Canada. He scored the goal that won the World Junior. And
I don't remember that.
Right? It's like,
yeah, exactly.
It's funny how that sort of a lot of it is, the Miracle on Ice. But that's not the game that clinched the gold medal for the United States.
Right.
It was the next game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. Exactly. And like
you remember Al Michaels? It was the Soviets. It was all that. But I mean, that's not
they had to win that in order to believe they had a chance.
People now think that they won the gold medal that night. They didn't.
Right. Well, the Eberle goal was a tying goal, wasn't it?
It was a tying goal in a semifinal game.
Yeah, it wasn't the winning goal. He tied it with 6 seconds.
And they won the game in a shootout.
Right.
He scored the shootout winner, I think.
Yeah, you're right, though, about the moment, the player, the buildup.
The photo,
and then the reaction,
or the image of it, just the
right. And people have to keep it alive. Like the fans have got to keep that moment alive.
Tigers chipped it at 16 of the Masters.
Yeah,
all of it. It's the Masters. It's Tiger. Mm-hmm. The theater of 16. All of that.
Right.
And I'm not saying it's wrong. I mean, obviously, the Bautista moment is a great moment. It's just interesting how it overshadows a lot of moments you would think that, if you look at it kind of objectively, are bigger.
Well, it's
Alomar's home run against the A's.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that was that game 5 or so. I don't remember what the game though. So, but exactly, you go back to 85 when they got in. You could go back to different parts of the early 90s when they were just getting in. They won 2 World Series. There clearly were bigger clutch hits that led to a World Series.
Here's my best example of this: Carlton Fisk, right? The home run in 75.
Right.
Bernie Carbo hit a pinch hit 3-run home run to tie that game.
Well,
and that's I mean, you never see it, you never hear about it.
To extent, now we're going on top of each other here, but like the Bartman catch in Chicago, that was game 6.
Yeah.
And Buckner was game 6. The Sox lost game 7 to the Mets. They could have won the next game, and then Buckner's off the hook.
Yeah.
And so is Bartman.
Yeah.
Like if the Cubs got smoked game 7 by the Marlins.
And so did the Red Sox.
And I believe the Mets won big game 7. I believe. And those are game 6s.
Yeah.
Anyway. Jose Bautista in town. We love it. Shout out to Jose. We appreciate him coming on. OverDrive continue. Yeah, exactly. Think about it. The mic flip. Mic flip, courtesy of Gord Miller. OverDrive continues, TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. All right, TSN 1050 is once again delivering backpacks filled with school supplies to support local families. It's all part of our 9th annual Back to School Backpacks event happening Wednesday, August 23rd. This year's event is presented by Healthy Planet. Together in partnership with the Children's Breakfast Clubs, 1,010 young students will receive the tools they need to succeed before the school bell rings in September. For all the details, please head to tsn1050.ca.
What a great program.
Great program.
Love that.
Yeah, that's one we're really proud to be a part of, and like we're talking a month away. It's go time.
Yeah.
School is back in session.
Taking my daughter to university this fall.
And there you go. That's a completely different process. Yeah, university. I'm going to have both my kids in school. And, we're a month away from NHL camps getting close to
NFL regular season.
NFL regular season in less than 4 weeks.
What's your favorite time of the year? So there's kind of two that people pick.
Yeah.
Some people pick September, October, or is it spring?
April, May.
April, May. So, you're in the NHL playoffs. You got baseball.
I'm such a massive NFL fan. I would say September, October.
I'm with you. I think October.
October because the NHL is going, baseball is going, NBA is going, football, NFL.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Love it.
Yeah. And you can still play golf in October. It's tight, but you can still play. I will say, as a guy that loves to play golf, April and May is amazing because it's back.
Tennis.
Close.
You can play year-round.
You're a tennis guy? You're a pickleball guy?
I've not played it.
I strike you as a pickleball guy.
I've never played it.
Okay. All right. Fine. Keegan Matheson coming up in the next hour. Steve Sands, our boy, talking golf. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050, soon to be up on TSN 2.